Okay, so we're going to talk about Unit 5, Day 4, and it is factoring quadratic expressions that have a not equal to 1 as a leading coefficient. So there are different methods you could use. Guess and check always works, but I like to use the AC method. So the AC method is if you had ax squared plus bx plus c. What you're going to do is we are going to multiply the a times c together. And then we are going to use the factors of a and c that will add to get the b. Factors to get b by adding or subtracting. Okay, so step 1 is you're going to find AC. Step 2 is you are going to rewrite B using factors, and this will make sense once I show you an example. Step 3 is you are going to factor by grouping. All right, so if you don't know what that means, I totally understand, and I'm going to walk you through a couple of examples. So this takes the guess and check out of factoring these trinomials, which are usually the hardest type for students. So let's look at example 1. I've got A, B, and C. So I'm going to take A times C, so I've got 2x squared times 15. And you can do that in your head if you like, but I'm going to get 30x squared. And I need to come up with the factors of 30x squared that will add or subtract to get me 13x. So I know that 15 times 2 gives me 30. And if I make that 15x times 2x, that multiplies to get 30x squared originally. And then if I want to get 13x by adding or subtracting, I want to have positive 15 minus 2x. And that will add to give me 13x. So that's step 1. And then step 2, we're going to rewrite this 13x. So I'm going to keep the 2x squared, and then I'm going to replace 13x with this quantity. So I'm not changing the amount, I'm just rewriting how it looks. And these can go in either order. So plus 15x minus 2x. And then I still need to keep the 15. Okay? So I haven't changed the equation, I just changed how it looked. So factor by grouping, what you do is you take two terms at a time and you factor out what they have in common. So in the first group, I can take an x out. So if I divide both terms by an x, you're left with 2x plus 15. And then in the second group, they don't really have anything in common, but I can divide out a negative 1. So if I divide out by a negative 1, I'm left with positive 2x and then minus 15. And what you'll notice is these two parentheses are the same, and that means you did it correctly. So then the last step of factor by grouping is to actually, these are two terms, is to take out what they have in common. So they both have that parenthesis in common. So if I factor that out, I'm left with x minus 1 in a group together. So I kind of like to say the outsides go together and the insides go together. And so this is completely factored of the original. Okay? All right, let's try another example. All right, we've got A, B, and C. So the signs are going to change, but the process doesn't. So I've got 3x squared times 15, which is 45x squared. And I need the factors that will give me 14. So this is kind of bigger. We'll just see. I've got 9 times 5 is 45, and I want to split the x's up. And if I want to get negative 14, if both of these are negative, then we will. So I'm going to rewrite the 14x using these two factors. So 3x squared minus 9x minus 5x, and then I still keep the plus 15. Okay? So then I'm going to factor by grouping, which is common factoring twice. So the first two have a 3x in common. So if I divide by 3x, and you can do that in your head, you'll be left with x minus 3. And then these, it looks like a 5, but remember you want that parenthesis to be the same, so you actually want to factor out a negative 5. So that's how you can kind of help yourself. So I would get x, and then that would be minus 3. So make sure they match so you know you have the correct signs. And then my outsides are going to be in common, so I take those out, and I'm left with 3x minus 5. So if we would multiply these all back, we would get what we started with. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll change types. So a times c is negative 10x squared. I need to get 1. So I get, well, 10 is 5 times 2, 10 times 1, and so this one, I really only have 5 and 2, which could give me a 7 or 3, positive or negative, but a 1 is what I need. I could do 10 and 1, which gives me 11 or 9. So if I want to get that 1, it's not possible. So not possible or not factorable. Okay. All right, let's look at the next type. So this only has 2 terms, so it's a binomial. So first we want to start with what they have in common. So I can divide both of these by 4. No, I can't, 3. So if I divide by 3, and I'm going to factor it out, we're left with 4x squared minus 9. And then these are called the difference of perfect squares. So as a review, the difference of perfect squares. So this is going to combine 2 different types. So this was the first kind of factoring, which is common factoring, is when you have like a squared minus b squared. And you can basically take the square root of each of these. And it's a plus b and a minus b. So I always just kind of break these up. And I think, well, that's 2x times 2x. That's 3 times 3. One has to be positive, one's negative to get negative 9. So the 3 stays from the common factor. And then I have 2 binomials, 2x plus 3 or 2x minus 3. It doesn't matter if I have these switched or not, but the 2x's should be first and the 3 should be second. And so this was common and difference of perfect square factoring. Once you, now that we've learned all the different types of factoring, you always want to check common first. So I'm going to make a little asterisk here, but check common factoring first, because then that makes all the other kind of factoring just a lot easier to recognize and do. All right, so let's look at example 5. So I know they divide by 2. I'm going to see if I can get bigger. 4. That's probably as big as I can get. So 4. So I'm going to start with common first, and you don't have to tell me, I just like you to know. So if I divide all terms by 4, we get 5x squared minus 22x plus 8. Okay? So then I want to check to see if I can factor that trinomial. So this looks like the AC method, since our number in front is a 5. So I'm going to do the AC method over on the side. So a times c is 40x squared. And I need to get negative 22. So I could do 8 times 5 or 20 times 2. Split the x's up. So if I want a negative 22, they both have to be negative. And 2 negatives do multiply to get that positive. So I'm going to rewrite this middle term. The 4 will stay in my answer, but I don't need it right now. So let's do common factoring. I can take out a 5x, so x minus 4. I can divide out a negative 2, so x divided by negative 2. And so they match, so I get 5x minus 2 and x minus 4, and then bring that 4 down for the common factoring. So this is equivalent to our original question. All right, last one. Well, I see they all have an x in common, and that x cubed is kind of a hint. And I think just 2, because 26 doesn't divide by 4 or 30. So we're going to factor out a 2x. So if I divide by 2x, that's really what we're doing. We're left with 2x squared plus 13x plus 15. So this is another AC method. So a times c, and I need the factors to give me 13. So I've got commonly 15 times 2, but I would need it to be 15 minus 2, and then that would multiply to get negative 30. So I know that cannot be a factor. But 10 and 3, if they're both positive, would multiply to be positive. So those are the ones we want. So make sure you check the signs because that's important too. So we're going to rewrite the middle term and then do common factoring. Divide out a 2x, divide out a 3, and they match, so we did it correctly. So the outsides go together and the insides go together, and we bring down that 2x.